Okay, so I think we'll make a start now. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Emma Harris. I'm Senior Partnership Manager for Governors for Schools for the North West region, and I'm here with Jill McCausland, who's the Schools Partnership Manager.
Hello.
Gonna say hi, Jill. Firstly, can I just check that people can hear me? If everyone could raise your hand, which you should see in the dashboard on the right, just to confirm for me. Hopefully I'll see lots of hands going up now. Brilliant, that looks positive. Great, that's great, thank you. Also, just wanted to note that all of us delivering the webinar tonight, we're obviously working at home. We're aiming for no background noise or distractions, but if there are, then apologies, and we have tried to minimise those. So we're really pleased to have had such a high level of interest in this webinar. It is the first one that we've done like this, so it's great to see that there's interest out there. As there are so many people attending, I am going to keep everybody on mute just so we don't have too much of the background noise. You'll see that there is the facility to ask a question. Please feel free to ask a question at any point, but we will save most of those for the end of the presentation. Okay, so we will make a start proper now. So we know that schools and governors are experiencing challenges like never before. It's great to have so many of you take the time to join us tonight, because I know that you're all very busy. We really hope that it will be useful, and hopefully our support will be able to lighten the load for you. So we'll be discussing these three key areas, and we're really pleased to be joined by Chris Murphy, who's Business Development Manager at the Key, the support service for school governors. Say hi, Chris. And by Neil Collins, who's Director at GovHub.
Evening, everyone.
Great, thank you both of you for joining us tonight. We thought it'd be useful here to find out a little bit more about you two, so I'm just going to run a quick poll. Bear with me 1 second, and if you could all get involved for me, that would be great. Here we go. You're able to just tell us how you're involved, that'd be fantastic. Oh, good, we're seeing quite a mix already, actually. Just give you another 10 seconds or so to vote on that. Right, lots of you voting there. See, most of you are governors or trustees, but quite a few clerks as well, and quite a few in governance support, so that's quite a mix of people. Great, that's really interesting to see. Thank you very much for that, and it's good that we've got a diverse group of people that are joining us tonight. Thank you. So bear with me. Just to tell you a little bit more about Governors for Schools and who we are. We've been around for 20 years, improving education through governance. Initially, we started as a pilot project through the Department for Education with the aim to connect business professionals with schools in need of their skills, really. From here, we've grown into an independent charity, and we operate a free recruitment service to state-funded schools in England. We know that having talented and committed volunteers active in board roles can absolutely transform a school, and that's why we work with universities and corporate partners to find committed volunteers who want to make a difference. So far, we've placed over 25,000 volunteers as governors and trustees, and we aim to not only find volunteers with the right skills, but to ensure that boards are representative of the wider community, and we're successful in engaging a broad range of people from a broad range of backgrounds. That's particularly evident in our Governor Stories project. If you do want to have a little look at that online afterwards, it's a group of interviews with lots of our governors talking about their experiences. So just to move on to talk about how to register your vacancy. Thanks, Jill. Before we go into how to do that, I'm going to do another quick poll, if that's all right. Thought it'd be useful to see who does have a vacancy at the minute, if you know that you have a vacancy. Oh, lots of people saying more than one. That's interesting. Thanks everybody for voting. Great, thank you. I'm conscious that the results didn't come up for you last time, so I'll just read them through. It's split in between 17 and 18. Of 18%, they've got one vacancy. A quarter of you have got more than one. A quarter haven't got any. And then that leaves us with 32 or 33 that aren't involved with board recruitment at the minute. Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you very much for that. So schools can register governor or trustee vacancies with us, and there is no charge for state funded schools. Vacancies can be registered either by the school directly, by those on or by those supporting the board, by the local authority or by the academy trust. And then we also work with independent schools, but we do charge them for our service. You can go online and register, go onto our website, fill in things like who's going to be the key contact there. Jill will talk to you in more detail about what kind of information would be helpful to have in that, but it does take about 10 minutes to register a vacancy online, and then it goes straight through to your regional partnership manager. You can also contact Jill, and her email address will be up at the end, and she'll be able to talk to you about what volunteers we have available. But you can also go on the website and find the contact details again for your regional partnership manager. We are mostly based in London, but we do have people working in each of the regions as well, so you'll be talking to somebody with some local knowledge. And then there is also an option through GovHub. So if I could introduce Neil, and if you don't mind sharing the screen, please, Jill.
Thanks, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thanks, Neil.
Great. So what I'm going to just talk through tonight is a feature that's going to be coming live soon on GovHub, and it will give you really easy integration into Governors for Schools if you want to register your vacancies. For those of you who don't know about GovHub, so GovHub is an online website you can use for managing documents and managing your board's membership, also accessing your local MAT or LA governor services. We're used by about 8,000 schools around the country, about 100,000 users. And interestingly, as we went around our schools, and we probably talked to more governing boards than almost anybody else in the country, one common theme was filling vacancies. It's a common issue that most boards, most trusts struggle with. So this is why we're really keen to partner with Governors for Schools. What you'll be able to do in the very near future, I'm afraid this will be a little bit arm-wavy because it is a future feature, is go into your governing board area. That looks like this. You can look in your governing board, and within there we track your constitution. And sadly, many of them look like this, i.e. you've got your governors there, but you're also showing vacancies at various different levels. And what you'll be able to do, there'll be a button introduced here which will take you straight through to Governors for Schools. You won't need to have a separate account there. We'll just sign you in, automatically pass over your school details as well, and then you'll be able to go through the normal process of registering a vacancy. So not rocket science, but we hope it'll just help signpost some more GovHub users through to a really valuable service that you can register for really easily, and this will make it that little bit easier still. Okay, at that point I will stop sharing my screen and hopefully I can switch back.
Thanks for that, Neil. Back over to you now, Jill.
Thank you. So hopefully you can all hear me okay. Thank you very much for showing us that, Neil. It's really great to see, and it's going to be a really good partnership moving forward, I think. So a few of you have said that you do currently have a vacancy or more than one vacancy, which is great to know. So what I want to talk about now is, once you know you have a vacancy, thinking about who you might want to fill it. So starting with the skills required, really, we suggest that boards complete a skills audit, which will then inform their vacancy registration. So we would encourage you to think beyond job titles. You might be looking for financial skills, but it's good to bear in mind that it's not only an accountant, for example, who can provide that. We have recruits with a range of job titles who manage substantial budgets, for example. So very good to think broadly about the skills you need rather than the career. In terms of broadening your criteria, again, you may have a well-balanced board in terms of skills, and actually you just need someone who can bring a different viewpoint, who might have a link to the local community, or just someone who's able to fully commit to the role, and that's absolutely fine. The more you tell us about what you're looking for, the better match we can make for you. It's also worth maybe thinking about link governor roles that you may not have had before, but that fit with the ethos of the school. So, for example, someone with expertise in wellbeing or a background in sports. We know that as a result of the current pandemic, that schools will have to place renewed focus on wellbeing of staff and students. So having someone on your board who can ask pertinent questions around this could have an impact on your delivery in that area. Then diversity on boards. So we know that having different backgrounds and experiences around the table will help with effective challenge. Your board needs to be diverse to be able to represent the students, the staff, and the wider community. If you tell us about the makeup of your board currently, we can seek to widen that representation for you. And GovHub also offers support around this specific area with its Community Insights page. And when you're thinking about diversity, you need to be focusing on gaining diversity of experiences, views, and backgrounds. Diversity of perspective around the table is what will provide effective challenge. In terms of time commitment, it's really useful for us to know the usual time and regularity of meetings, as well as any other commitments that volunteers might need to make. Obviously, in the current circumstances, the best laid plans have had to change and school boards have adapted to working remotely. And now, if this is something that your board might consider doing longer term, we can talk to you a bit more about flexi governance. So we might have a volunteer with exactly the experience that you're looking for who isn't necessarily local to you. So it could be worth thinking about if they could join meetings remotely to provide their expertise. And we do have lots of volunteers who are willing to contribute in this way. And a big question we get asked a lot is how long will it take to find a volunteer? Now, we can make no promises about the length of time that it will take. In some areas, we do have more volunteers than vacancies, and in others, it can be more of a challenge to find the right person. But when you register a vacancy, we will look through our existing pool, and if there's no one suitable, we'll then start looking for someone in the area to match your needs. And finally, it's also helpful to consider succession planning. So by considering future vacancies, we can find someone to keep the board running effectively with as much time as possible. And most volunteers are usually quite happy to be considered for future vacancies as long as there's regular contact and they can observe meetings before being placed, making them better informed and more effective once they're appointed. So once you've thought about who you might want and you've let us know what you're looking for, we then have to find somebody for you. So how we go about doing that is we work with a broad range of partners, including corporates and universities, so that we can attract people with broad skills and backgrounds. This includes partners such as PwC, KPMG, and over 30 universities across England, so quite a varied bunch of partners. We provide information to the employees and members of these partners so that they have a realistic understanding of the role and the commitment required. We go in to provide face-to-face presentations as well as webinars, and we support them to have governor networks so that the governors are able to support each other and share best practice. Additionally, as mentioned, we actively seek volunteers in areas of high demand or when specific skills, experience or backgrounds are sought after. So when someone applies with us, they will be allocated to a regional partnership manager who will support them throughout the process. This partnership manager will then give them a call to make sure that they have an understanding of the role and the commitment involved and talk to them about the kind of school they might be looking to support. This personal approach helps to make successful matches and to keep the volunteers engaged in the process. And we know that recruitment has understandably not been the priority for many schools in the last few months. So we've stayed in touch with our volunteers to help them understand that. And in most of England, we will discuss a vacancy with the volunteer and then share their application with the school. But in London, as we have a higher number of volunteers than vacancies, we will normally approach the school with the application first and then the volunteer. And I'll hand over to Emma now to take things further.
Brilliant, thank you, Jo. So what happens after you receive the application? Excuse me, we usually ask that once you've received the application that if you're interested, you contact the volunteer within 2 weeks, even if that is just to notify them that your next meeting isn't for a little while. Obviously, due to the current situation and everything else that is going on for schools, we absolutely understand that it might take a bit longer to get around to that. And we're preparing volunteers to understand that as well. What we are seeing is quite a few people, you know, initially reviewing an application, perhaps having an initial call and saving a face-to-face meeting until September, when hopefully things might be a little bit easier. But as long as we can keep in contact with volunteers, that's really key. The next stage would be to arrange a meeting directly with the volunteer. And like I say, ideally, under normal circumstances, that would be a visit to school. At the minute, that might not be able to happen and may not be able to happen for a while, but we are seeing lots of volunteers and schools speaking over the phone and having video calls initially. And taking things from there concerning school visits. Obviously, you've got to work in line with the guidance from the government and Public Health England. After that, it can be a good idea for a volunteer to observe one of your board meetings, and that is happening increasingly remotely as well, that people are managing to observe those meetings remotely. That will give the volunteer a really good idea of what the role looks like in practice and a feel for how they might fit in and contribute. And then if all parties are in support, then you can then follow your own appointment process, whether that is through the local authority, through the trust or on the board. With governing body meetings happening remotely at present, for which we do have support and resources available on our website, it is still possible to recruit and appoint governors just using different technology. It all looks a little bit different at the minute, but it's definitely still moving forward. It's worth pointing out that while governors for schools, we do review applications for suitability to the role, the responsibility for safeguarding checks such as DBS checks, that still lies with the school or the academy trust. Okay. So if we can move to the next slide, thank you. We don't just want to place volunteers, we do want them to be effective from their first meeting. So that's why every governor placed at the school through our service receives a year's free access to the key for school governors. So I'm just going to hand over to Chris to tell us a little bit more about the key.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
I think so, thanks Chris.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, my name's Chris and I work for the Key. Today I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the Key for School Governors. So the Key was originally a government-funded pilot scheme. It was launched in 2007. So at the time, it was recognised that though each school is unique, all schools face similar challenges, and that a central bank of quality assured resources was required to support schools with those national issues. And that really was how the Key was born. So we've come a long way since those humble beginnings. We now support around 50% of schools in the country. Our governor service, is called the Key for School Governors, and that is our second most popular service, but that is growing on a daily basis. I think there are a few reasons why it continues to grow. For those of you that have been in governance for a while, you will know that good governors and good wider governance is so important for driving school improvement. And it's great to see that more and more schools and trusts are starting to put more time and resources into supporting their governors. So how do we help with driving school improvement? So we have thousands of practical articles, resources, templates that all revolve around this concept of the knowledge to act. So that is, what do I need to know? What does it mean for me? And then finally, and most importantly, what do I then need to do? What are the next steps that I need to take in order to achieve good outcomes? We all know that good outcomes are a result of good decisions, and good decisions come from good information. And that's really where the Key for School Governors comes in. So to create that good information, we work with leading experts from across the country, including NLGs, multi-academy trusts, school improvement companies, and local authorities. We bring that knowledge, that experience and that expertise together before putting each piece of content through a vigorous internal and sometimes external quality assurance process before publishing it. And then our members go onto that and access it that way. The types of content that we have completely varies. Right now, as I'm sure you could all imagine, we're supporting local governing bodies through the coronavirus pandemic, particularly at the moment around risk assessments and things like that. However, more broadly, and before the pandemic, and I think it will certainly return as the new normal returns, things around reviewing curriculum, governor inductions, recruitment, things like that, and how to prepare for Ofsted inspections. I'm very conscious that I actually haven't shown you the Key for School Governors, but that was very deliberate. My little task for everybody here today is to go on the Key for School Governors, take a free trial. You get access to 3 free resources and have a try yourself. But that is it from me.
Brilliant, thanks ever so much, Chris. In addition to all the support that we provide for governors who are placed with us, we want all governors to be effective, so not just those people that we placed. We host a monthly webinar series which has seen over 3,500 attendees since April. And those webinars have received an average of 8 out of 10 for those giving feedback, which we're really pleased about. Our webinars have covered subjects such as safeguarding during the pandemic, reputation management, strategic HR. They're really varied and really interesting. And these are free to all members of your governing or trustee boards. We also have a suite of e-learning modules that are open to all governors, and they're available on our website. They cover things like finance, SEN and employability, to name just a few. So just a last quick poll. It would be really interesting to know if you have accessed any of our online resources before. So bear with me one second while I just do this poll. Okay, so have you accessed our online support materials before? Lots more for the webinars than for the e-learning. Highly recommend checking out the e-learning. Great. So again, I'm conscious that not everyone can see those. So what I would say is about, it's just going up, just over a quarter of people have accessed our webinars, and around 8% have accessed e-learning. Oh, and thankfully, well over a quarter have accessed both. That does leave nearly a third of you that haven't accessed any of our resources before. I would really encourage you to just go and have a look, check them out. They are really useful. And you can point any of your governors to our website to access these resources. We'd also like to just highlight that we've recently launched a coronavirus support and resources page on our website, which will hopefully provide a bit of guidance for governors, especially those new to the role, in navigating the current circumstances and the impact on our schools. Okay. Jill?
Hello again, everyone. So just to talk about next steps. So if you do have a vacancy, which some of you said you do, we would really encourage you to register your vacancy with us on the Governors for Schools website or via the Governor Hub link once that is live. Additionally, you can, of course, contact me. My email address will be on the screen shortly to follow, or your regional partnership manager, details of which can be found on our website. And as Emma said, please do feel free to share our training resources to all of your governors on your board or anyone within your network. They are free to access. They're really helpful. They've got lots of interesting information there, which hopefully will be vital to people within the governor network. So now we just have a little bit of time for some questions. Sorry, just accidentally muted myself. There are quite a lot of people on the webinar, so if we don't quite get round to answering everyone, we are sorry. We will get back to you if possible. Please do feel free to email us though. My email there, Jill McCausland, and Emma's is there as well. You can email either of us with your questions if easier, but we will endeavour to answer a few now. So just having a look.
Someone's asked if the slides are going to be emailed out. We won't be emailing out the slides, but a recording of the webinar will be on the website later this week. So hopefully you can go in and access those. Let me have a look what else we've got. Someone had said, would we advocate an interview process? In most of their boards, the chair and the head teacher prefer to interview prospective candidates. Absolutely. Yeah, you know, that person has got to be able to show that they're going to be able to have an impact and that they're going to have the skills that are going to benefit the governing board. So when we say that once you've received their application, we'd recommend what would normally be a face-to-face meeting. In some schools, that looks like a much more formal interview process. But definitely is worth that person meeting with the head and the chair, partly because the decision is also on their side as well. They may feel like that school, you know, is going to be the right fit for them, or might not be the place that they can have most impact. So we'd definitely recommend that. Someone's asked for the key, what happens when the free access period ends? If that's in terms of a governor who's been placed with us, you'd get 12 months free access, and then it's a paid for service. Do you want to add anything else to that, Chris?
Just that if we have lots of commercial membership arrangements with lots of local authorities all across the country, so it's definitely worth looking into that. Also, we work with lots of multi-academy trusts as well, so that is another avenue to membership or access to the key.
Brilliant, thank you for that. Bear with me while we just read some questions. Got a few more technical things in here about not being able to vote on the last poll, so apologies about that. Had a question, do we recruit for foundation vacancies? Yes, we can absolutely support the recruitment for foundation vacancies. Again, like Jill said earlier, we can't give any kind of time scale on that. And in some areas it can be more challenging than others, but we'll talk to you about exactly what it is that you need, whether that is a faith reference, and we can talk to you about your own recruitment process for those roles as well.
I'm just going to pick one up as well from somebody saying, I've just become a governor, how do I get my key log on? If you have been placed as a governor through Governors for Schools, we send out a fellowship email which has details of all the support we offer and the registration details for the key. We tend to send this towards the sort of end of a month, just to make sure that we get everyone within that time period. So if it's very recent, that should be following kind of within the next couple of weeks. We will be sending those out, so hopefully you'll get those soon. Do make a note of my email address and feel free to email me if you don't receive that.
Thanks. Someone said they're struggling to find the regional partnerships managers contact details on the website. You've got mine and Jill's details there. If you just want to contact us, we'll put you right in touch with the person for your area. And of course, tell us what area you're in, and then that can be more helpful. Oh, that's a brilliant question. Any top tips on the best time to hold governing board meetings to enable easier recruitment? As we've said, we work with a lot of corporate partners, a lot of universities as well. We really encourage them to offer flexible working to their staff, and they are in the main absolutely on board with that where the job does allow. But obviously, it's going to be much easier to find a volunteer who works full time, who is able to commit to a meeting at say 5 p.m. rather than 2 p.m. So if you can have a little bit of flexibility, and obviously appreciate that your board is mainly made up of volunteers, then if it's possible to do it outside of the working day, it can be a lot easier. Let me just have another read through question. Someone's put, right, bear with me. My limited experience as a new school governor with no experience of school organisation and jargon, I found this inexperience a big hurdle to becoming effective. And I think, just before I get to the question, I think that is an experience that that many volunteers have. The question is, can we improve training for new governors from a non-academic and local government background? It's something that we are always working on, and that is part of the reason we do our monthly webinar series, because we know there is so much information for you to take in, and that people do take in information in many different ways. We also support things like governor networks with our employer partners, so that they're able to share best practice. In some cases, they even kind of buddy up people within a specific employer with newer governors, so that that additional support is there. So it's something we're constantly working on and encouraging employer partners to do as well.
Actually, Jill, I'd just add to that to the question there. There's the onus isn't necessarily here on the governor either. If your school is presenting you with something which is jargon filled and isn't clear, ask the question. What you'll probably find is that several other governors sitting around the table, potentially with more experience than you, also don't know what the jargon means. And it's often a big sigh of relief all around the table when someone says, what does that actually mean? So yes, from personal experience, I think it's well worth just asking the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're definitely not the only one. I mean, I know in our induction pack we have a list of acronyms, which is definitely useful to refer back to, as is everything else in that induction pack. So maybe go and have a little look through that again. I think sometimes it makes more sense after your first meeting that you can put these things into context a little bit better. Okay. Sorry, we have got quite a few questions, so I'm just trying to run through the ones that we've already answered. Somebody's asked a specific question about an issue that they're having with the e-learning. If you could just email myself or Jill, then we'll be able to have a look at that one a bit more specifically for you, okay? If you have been placed with us, the induction pack used to be posted out. In the last 3 months, that's had to change, so is now sent via email, okay? Someone's asked if they can access the key before they've been placed. What we'd say is we would wait until you have been placed, because that's when you're going to be able to make best use of it. By all means, and would really encourage access the e-learning and the webinars from us before being placed. But your free 12 months is going to have most impact when you're actually on the governing board. On the other side of that, particularly at the minute, you can defer starting your membership of the key. So if you're placed now, but you know actually you're not really going to have much involvement till September, you can wait to kind of get that started. Someone's asked about training for governors that haven't come through Governors for Schools. Anyone can access our training resources on the website. So all the webinars, all the resources pages in the e-learning, you can share those with whole boards, and we just want to improve governance overall. So governors don't need to have been placed through us to be able to access that. Let me see what we've missed so far. Have you seen any others, Jill?
Just looking, having a look now. Somebody's asked where can the induction pack be found. That's the email that I mentioned sending out earlier. So if it is that you have been placed and haven't received that, do just drop me an email and I can look into that for you.
Someone's asked if we've got sorry.
No, that's okay.
Someone's asked if we've got training specifically for chairs of governing boards. I would say not yet, but it is certainly something that we'd be looking at in the future. Can I link existing Governors for Schools vacancies? Can they be linked into the... I'm not quite sure what that question is, but I know who sent it, so I'll ask you a question afterwards.
I think that one referred to the GovHub support. So yeah, got it. Yeah, I think the answer should be yes. So you've got existing vacancies registered on Governors for School, they should be picked up as long as you're registered with the same email address.
Brilliant, thank you for that. Chris, we've got a question here. What's the difference between the key and the National Governance Association?
Yeah, good question. It's one that we do get. So the National Governance Association does do some great work. From my experience, they do a lot more lobbying than the Key for School. The Key for School Governors very much focuses on producing content to support governors with the decision-making process that they need to make. We've got, I don't think there's anybody out there with as many articles as we have, depth and breadth. But I think, long story short, they serve different needs. Yeah, it completely depends on what you're looking for, I think.
Great, thank you, Chris. Someone's just handily saying that they kind of stumbled across us by accident, but they recommend us recruiting through LinkedIn, which I'd say, yes, we do. We find some absolutely fantastic people there. Obviously, we work with our corporate and university partners to recruit a lot of our volunteers. A lot of volunteers do find us through their own research, and then particularly where we've got school vacancies that have got very specific skills or experience that they're looking for, we will use platforms like LinkedIn to find the right people. So yeah, absolutely, thank you for that. Right, I think we might be about there. Jill, can you see any others unanswered?
Just having a look. No, I think. Unless anyone else has any last minute questions.
Yeah, if you've got one that we've missed, then please do send it over to us.
And yeah, please do feel free to email us as well if there's anything you think of later too.
Okay, I don't think there's any new questions coming in at the minute. So at this point, I'll say thank you to Neil and to Chris for both joining us. It's been really helpful having your insight on here. And thank you to Jill, obviously, but to all of you for taking a bit of time tonight and hearing more about our services. We really hope that they will be useful. Like we say, even if you've not got a vacancy now, consider us for the future, and please do just spread the word about our resources as far and wide. We want as many people to be improved in their governor roles from using our resources. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you all for attending.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.